Okay, I'd like to welcome all the Serrans throughout the United States and Serrans from around the world to Serra Meets, and this is our 57th meeting. We first started meeting during COVID in December 12th of 2020. I'm your host, I'm Ann Rote, and I'm president of the U.S. Council, but a member of the Serra Club of Lafayette in Indiana. So, Your Eminence, welcome to Serra Meets. We're so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anne. I'm so grateful for your introduction there. And it's really an honor to be with all of you, and especially to know that this includes people from all around the world. So thank you all so much for allowing time in your schedule for what I hope is an enjoyable conversation, as well as just some spiritual insights that I would like to share with all of you. But I certainly begin by expressing profound gratitude to all of you for the gift that Serrans are to the church, to the diocese in which you live, to the priests and religious that you serve so well. My connection to the Serrans goes way back. I remember entering the seminary, and one of the first events that the Serrans hosted was a luncheon for the seminarians entering that year and their parents, which was probably a better gift to the parents that day because most of them were so fearful. What is my son getting into? And then they met other parents and met the other seminarians, and it was just a great introduction. As Ann mentioned, as rector of the seminary, the Serrans played such a great role in the support they offer to seminarians, most especially spiritually, prayerfully, but also even financially, assisting seminarians in need. And then as a bishop of an ordinary of two dioceses, the Serrans are what I call a treasure within the diocese, a gift. And I know I join my brother bishops in expressing a deep appreciation for who you are, what you do, and most especially the witness and the example of your lives. Thank you all so very much. So as Ann mentioned, the talk tonight is fostering a culture for supporting and promoting vocations to the priesthood. We were extremely blessed in June of this past year in my diocese, where I had the great privilege of ordaining 12. We had 12 new priests. And I have to say, a number of my brother bishops came up to me at the June meeting and said, all right, what's in the water? What is in the water in Arlington? How are you getting 12 priests to be ordained? You only have 70 parishes. And, the answer, of course, as you all know, the answer to that question is by the grace of God. The vocations that are given to a church, to a diocese, are God's gift and God's grace and God's blessing. So it all begins there. But as you know, we are always called to cooperate with God's grace. He invites us to participate in his work, in his ministry, as all of you do. And if you're going to create a culture of promoting vocations, then it's not one thing, it's everything. It's not one group, it's everyone. That's the only way a culture of vocations can be supported. In our diocese, I say we're a young diocese, we're only 50 years old. And I say one of the reasons that Arlington has always, I know when I was rector of the seminary, Arlington was always sending us seminarians. And I think I always say that one of the reasons is because our founding bishop, who was also rector of St. Charles Seminary, got us off to a great start. He got us on the right foundation. He made promoting vocations and praying for vocations a priority of his ministry. And in fact, in his first year, he invited the Poor Clares to establish a monastery in our diocese specifically for that purpose of vocations to the priesthood and consecrated life. And their presence in our diocese, I think, is such a source of the blessings that we have received. I remember in my own diocese in Raleigh, I promoted one of our priests to be vocation director. And he said, of course, Bishop, I will do what you ask. But he says, I have to tell you, my first year, all my work, all my emphasis is not going to be necessarily about getting new seminarians. My emphasis is going to be getting this diocese to pray for vocations. So my first year, that will be my emphasis. And he says, otherwise, I don't think I can do what you're asking. And we really became, with his great leadership and cooperation, a diocese that began to pray specifically for that intentions, praying specifically for men and women who were in discernment and in formation. And the transformation we saw in such a short time was absolutely incredible. I think God rewarded him because he was also, about 6 or 7 years ago, named the bishop, Bishop Schlesinger, in the Archdiocese of Atlanta, and a dear, dear friend of mine. How else do you promote a culture of vocations is great priests. Our priests are really inspire young men to consider this call by allowing them to see their joy in carrying out the priesthood. I don't know if you saw it or not, that just a couple of weeks ago, a priest who was only ordained 2 weeks had the opportunity to meet Pope Leo. And, Pope Leo, you could tell, was so surprised to hear that he was only a priest for 2 weeks. And the young priest wrote what Pope Leo told him. He said, be rooted in prayer and never, ever lose the joy of living the priesthood. And it is that joy that I think will always attract young men to pursue this call. And of course, holy families. We know that that's what the church needs more than ever, are holy marriages and holy families. And from them so often will come beautiful vocations. Creating a culture of vocations, I think also has to really foster the idea of inviting, personally inviting, not hounding, not hounding any good young man and woman you see, and every time you see them, you ask them to consider discerning a vocation. No, gently, never imposing, but always gently inviting, but inviting personally. My own vocation story, I say, always goes back to that moment when I was a junior in high school. And I went to a high school where there were like 3,000 students. And think about this. At that time, there were 30 diocesan priests on the faculty. So my friends and I, we saw priests all the time. We loved them and they were involved in our lives, and we had great rapport with them. And I'll never forget, one day, I was a junior in high school and I'm walking down the hall, and this priest who I did not have in class, so I was surprised he knew my name. He said, Michael, can I see you a minute? And he called me over. The first thing you think, you're in trouble, right? But he called me over and he said, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure, Father, what's that? He goes, have you ever thought about being a priest? And I was a little bit, but I really never told anyone I was thinking it. And I said, well, I would say not really. And he said, well, do me a favor. Would you at least think about it? Because I think you would be a good priest. And from that moment on, I never stopped thinking about it until I reached the point where I literally just surrendered and said, Lord, I can't stop thinking about this. I have to at least try and enter the seminary to discern if this is what you really want of me. The one thing I always remember about that priest, though, I thought I was only a junior in high school. So I thought, oh my goodness, from the rest of my junior year throughout all my senior year, every time I see him coming down the hall, I'm going to have to run the other way because he's going to keep asking me about being a priest. You know, he never did. He only asked me one time. That was it. One time. He planted the seed, and that's what I needed. And God used him as an instrument. And thank the good Lord, he was present when I was ordained a priest, and he was present even when I was ordained a bishop. And so that's the success of, many of you are familiar with this idea of inviting, the success of St. Andrew's dinners, which are are so important. They in both my other dioceses, Raleigh and here, they have really gone a long way because they serve two purposes. So in our diocese, the St. Andrew's dinner is an invitation to come and have dinner with me and my brother priests and learn a little bit more about our vocation. It's not about inviting those who express an interest in discerning the priesthood. It's just say, we would be honored if you would just come and learn a little bit more about our vocation. And there'll be probably a presentation on helping you to pray and discern what God's calling you. No pressure. We just like to spend this time with you. And I'm always amazed on a Friday night, you have to be at least a junior in high school, but on a Friday night, like we will get like 40, 50 young men, and they don't know who else is going to be there. And so it's kind of like, that's a pretty big yes. But the key is, I say to the priests, do not do this by email. Do not do this by text. Do not do this by the parish bulletin. No, I want you to go and do what that high school priest did for me. I want you to go up to a young man and just say, hey, Joseph, my bishop and some of my brother priests are getting together with some young men. We just want to share, the joy of our vocation and see if we can help you in any way, pray to see where God's leading. Would you think about joining us? You personally invite him by name. And I think that makes all the difference. But the other hidden benefit of that is it reminds the priests that all of us are vocation directors, all of us. And all of us should be inviting and encouraging young men to consider embracing our lives. For some reason, and I guess it's human nature, priests sometimes are very uncomfortable doing that. And I think underneath, because we're human, underneath is just the fear of being rejected. You invite someone, they say no, or Father, what are you talking about, or something like that. But if we get the priests to start doing that, they are so amazed that, like, first of all, the young man is honored that Father asked them that question, and so surprised with the number of people who give an affirmative response. And so that the dinner itself, of course, we have it at parishes, and we warn the parish ahead of time. Yeah, if you're going to host this dinner, thank you for doing so, but please have plenty of food because these young men can eat. So we always make sure that's part of the condition there. And then first thing we do is have dinner. We just have dinner just so we warm up, get to know each other a little bit. And then during the dinner, they write down some questions that they would like to ask the priest. They can ask the priest anything. How do I pray? What about if I'm still thinking about, I want to get married. Should I also consider priesthood? Do you ever get lonely? Like they can ask the priest anything. And the questions are great. And I just read the question. I just wait. And one of the priests gives an answer. And by the end of the night, I begin to see the priests are now getting excited when they're talking and sharing their story and talking to the young men about their ministry or about their own spiritual lives. And they get excited doing it. And so the St. Andrew's dinner sets the priests on fire, which is what we need if we're going to create a culture of vocations. So I found that one to be very, very much helpful. On a note that's a little maybe harder to explain of how you create a culture of promoting vocations. And I've experienced kind of both in different dioceses that I've served in. But if you create the culture where vocations to the priesthood and consecrated life are embraced, then you have to avoid two things. I think you have to avoid anti-clericalism. And by what I mean by that is if you in a diocese are afraid to celebrate and lift up the dignity of the priesthood and the unique call that it is that a man is chosen to give his life to the church sacrificially like the Lord, and will be ordained to turn bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ and to forgive people their sins and to proclaim and preach the word. And if you're not willing to celebrate that and the uniqueness of the call, it's not better than any other call. No, but it's unique. And sometimes where there's a culture not promoting the vocations of priesthood, it's because uh, everything's the same. There's no difference. We're all God's people, which is true. But in my diocese, we have a special day to lift up the priesthood. We have a special day to lift up married couples celebrating their 50th and 25th anniversary. A special day to lift up consecrated life. We have to celebrate all vocations, but if we just mix them all together and there's no difference, no unique, then why would anyone think about becoming a priest or consecrated life? And then you have to avoid clericalism, right? That this call to priesthood is not putting ourselves above other people, but rather becoming a humble servant who sacrificially and selflessly serves. So I quite respectfully and honestly, I've dealt with kind of both extremes in my years as a bishop, and each presents a challenge, but both have to be avoided if you're going to create a culture of promoting vocations. Another way you do so, and I think this is a great thing that has occurred in the Church of the United States over the past, 20 years, 30 years, or whatever, is that the admissions process is taken very seriously. That when you accept a seminarian, you are accepting him into a rigorous program of spiritual, intellectual, emotional, pastoral human formation. And so for the good of the man and for the good of the church, you got to keep the bar high. You can only accept men who are strong enough in body and spirit to participate fully in such a program. And so, they don't have to be saints. If they had to be saints, we wouldn't have anyone, right? But they have to be strong men because strong men attract strong men. And it's attractive. When our young men see our seminarians, they see strong men, gifted, intelligent, joyful, holy, relatable. Well, that's going to attract other men. And so I think that keeping the bar high is a very good way of promoting this culture of vocations. The other way I think that we do so is through relationships. It is so essential to promote a culture of vocations. It also involves promoting a family. We have to know each other. We have to love each other. And it's changed, right? When I entered a seminary, and this is not a criticism, it was just the signs of the time. It's just the way the society was. I had absolutely no expectation of the bishop knowing my name or meeting the bishop or seeing the bishop. And that wasn't a criticism. It's just the way it was. And that was it. It was accepted. And so I probably didn't meet the bishop until the week before my ordination. And that was it, right? Now, today, maybe it's gone the other extreme, but the bishops, the seminarians, they have my cell number, they text, they call, they email when things are going great and when things are not going great. I'm in constant, and most bishops are this way, constant communication with them, with a healthy boundary, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm always the bishop. You have to have boundaries with that. But the program for priestly formation calls me their spiritual father. And so as a father, I have to know them, I have to encourage them, and at times I have to challenge them or even correct them, but always with love. But if that relationship is not there, then there's going to be something missing. And promoting a culture will be like, well, it's so distant. Who wants to be part of that? But if it's seen as relational, like a family, like a fraternity, with proper boundaries, then it's attractive. And that includes the parents. We make sure that we get together a lot with the parents of our seminarians throughout the year. Not only are they invited to seminary events, but they're invited to diocese events, because we have to say, you're part of this. You're part of this diocesan family, and we celebrate that. And so I think that part of knowing how to relate to those who've accepted this call is all part of this promotion of a culture of promoting vocations. And I think the other way we do it, and I'm sure you will all agree with me, is we allow the faithful to see our seminarians. There's always that week where they tell their vocation story, or where they speak on behalf of the seminary. We put them out in front of the people. We have summer assignments. I just got done reading the evaluations of the pastors who had seminarians in their parishes this summer, and the reviews were excellent. They were very, very good. They were blessings. Seminarians were blessings to the parish, and they learned from the pastors. They learned from the lay staff and the leaders of the parish. But now people in the diocese are seeing them. Our posters are distributed in the schools. I love sometimes going to like a third grade, and I point to the seminarian's poster, and I point to one of the seminarians, and they can tell me his name. They know the names of the seminarians because they're writing to them, and so having the seminarians, respecting their time, because their vocation now is to be a good seminarian, a good student in information. But when there is that time to put them out in front of the people is so important. And so I'm sure all of your dioceses and archdioceses are doing this, and perhaps even more. I'm just sharing with you tonight some of the practices that have most effectively worked in the diocese where I have served. And again, it's all by the grace of God. It's not one thing, it's everything. It's not one group, it's everyone. And the Serrans play a very, very special part in being part of that everyone. And to all of you, I am very grateful. And thank you for the attention that you gave to me this evening, and for listening. I really appreciate it.
I heard you talk about relationships and how important that was. I was just on a call this week, and they talked about, especially as young people are discerning, just to have someone walking with them and building that relationship. Would you say something about that?
Oh yeah, it's very much about accompaniment, and so we always when someone comes forward and acknowledge that they're discerning, we always like to connect them with a parish priest, a seminarian, and to let them know that you're not going to walk alone as you discern. And the biggest thing we would like to help them to do is if they have not fostered that deep prayer life, that prayer life, that's the first thing we try to do, is put them in touch with our vocation director or their parish priest, just to say, how is your prayer life going? Because the most important thing for you to be right now, before you decide if you're going to the seminary or the convent or whatever, is are you connected with God in the way that you should be? Are you being with him in prayer? Are you attending mass? Let's get that. Let's make sure we have that in place before we start taking these steps. But let's take these steps one by one.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us, Bishop.
Thank you, and I really appreciate it. And thank you, Serra. You've been a big part of my life from a young age until the present day. And I love the Serrans in my diocese, and I'm so grateful for Serra International as well.